there will be dancing involved, and there will be we would be the loudest table in the room, and people keep looking at us like, why are they so loud? Why are they laughing? Why are they dancing? It's weird. And reality is, I don't mind being weird. I don't mind being the loud, obnoxious person in the room, because at the end of the day, people will eventually want to be like us and have that confidence, and that door is always open to them.
It feels good, right? Yo, I'm in the light at the end of the tunnel. Paper stacks, yeah, I got them in the bundles. Harry Potter breaking bread with the muggles. They said I wouldn't make it, now they looking puzzled. They said I wouldn't take it.
All right, Dylan, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, Ty, are you ready?
Absolutely.
All right. Timeout. Tyler, who the heck are we taking a timeout with today?
What's up, Kev? Well, ladies and gentlemen of the DFW in upstate New York, we have Dylan Rafaty, the president and CEO at North Texas Disability Chamber. Dylan, thanks for being on the show. I'm excited to have you, man. And the first question I wanted to ask you, if you had the ability to either dunk a basketball in Game 7, Mavs versus Heat as a Maverick, or knock a ball out of Globe Life Field for the Rangers versus let's just say that dang Astros, is it the home run or is it dunking a basketball?
You know, I say dunking a basketball, but here's the thing, Tyler. I've never been a dunker. I'm more of been a shooting a 3-pointer from long range. I would say near the half court range. So that to me is a lot more exciting than dunk is number 2, but baseball is baseball. Sorry.
Well, I see the Greg Norman logo there. Dylan, are you a golfer?
I golf for the leisure and supporting a charity. So I do a lot of foursomes out at charitable golf tournaments. I don't necessarily do it frequently. I'm not a golfer by any means, not an athlete by any means. I'm just a fan of the game and more importantly, supporting charities along the way.
I love that. All right, so we're stepping out. You're actually the closing. It's bottom of the ninth. They're bringing out the closer. It's a full count. 2 men on. What music are you asking for when you're coming out of the dugout?
Ooh, that's a good question. I never really thought of that. I this is not a sports song, but it's an iconic song of somebody who is legendary back in the 70s, 80s. Tina Turner's "Simply the Best." So that's again, that's not something you can. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
If that song doesn't get me moving, I don't know what will. I wholeheartedly agree.
Oh, dude.
Tina's got some pipes.
Exactly.
I love a little Tina Turner, especially that song, Dylan. And let's kick this off with a little New Year's talk, if you don't mind, Dylan. You know, we're here 2025. I believe this is like the first real day of the year for especially folks in business. What does 2025 hold for Dylan?
Last year was all about building momentum. This year was, which I'm about to share later this next month, is how do we scale the momentum and how do I scale my work and my impact? So it's really about people, organizations, and communities, and what I'm doing there. So the first thing is, how do I inspire the next generation of leaders with and without disabilities? And I will tell you, that's why I'm launching the Emerging Leaders Fellowship Program. And so to empower leaders, to give them the tools that they, can and should have. But I will tell you, as somebody who's been doing this for nearly 14 years, I'm successful today, but I'm not where I want to be. And so why did it take 14 years from somebody young person with disabilities to go somewhere? So I'm looking at giving them the tools and the resources, the network to get there. The second is, how do I impact organizations? And one of the things that I'm looking at is, how do we broaden the scope of what disability inclusion looks like? Everybody at one point or another might have a temporary or permanent disability. They might have a family member or a relative, and disability is universal. So really, it affects, and how do we normalize disability in other communities? So one of the things that I'm working on is, rather than just working with my own communities and silos, how do I broaden that perspective within other organizations? How do I make sure they're collecting data and information? Because the number one challenge we have in our community is data. We don't have enough data. And when we don't have enough data, what happens? Nobody's going to invest in it. Nobody's going to actually want to put a policy behind it without the data. And so those are the kind of things that we're tackling in communities where disability is underrepresented. And the last thing is, we have got reached out by 12 different cities in the United States wanting to start what we're starting here in North Texas. So one of my goals is to develop a blueprint on what our organization does and how we are unique and different from across the country, and how they can start one in their respective communities. So, in short, how do you scale that impact with people, organizations, and communities?
Yeah, I think it, and it sounds like, Dylan, you're a person of impact versus influence, and I think I've always been trying to weigh those pros and cons between both of those items. But I think Tyler has always centered me back to action, and taking action and taking those steps. A lot of these things, it's always funny when you're talking about these ideas. Very few people are willing to take the action to learn from all the experiences, both good or bad. Frankly, I'm trying to get better at not labeling things good or bad. Just by doing. What's been one of your greatest lessons? I mean, you stepped in 2024 to this role. I was reading a little bit of your synopsis. Everybody's putting out their year in review, right? You, at the beginning of the year, it looked like you were out of a job, looking for your next thing. And here God presented you with an opportunity that you clearly are stepping into and making your own. But looking back, some people get so dejected by losing a job. How did you get through that? How did you overcome that and build this confidence and this momentum that you keep talking about today?
Well, I've always had a confident personality. I just didn't know how to show it. And when I first started, and here's the thing, Kevin, the last year, January 1st last year, I chose to leave my previous employer. It was a choice that I made because I wanted to pursue a passion that it was hard to find in other areas. And so I pursued it by choice, and I had the backing and the support of my family. That's always very, very important. And at that time, I was also, and I still am, a single homeowner in a upper middle class neighborhood, and there's a lot of responsibilities on your shoulders too. But one thing I will tell you is I knew that this organization was going somewhere, and I had to credit Michael Thomas, a local guy here, who was the executive director of a regional organization called My Possibilities. He kind of woke me up, and I remember sitting in that his office in Plano, and which is a northern suburb of Dallas. And he basically said, "You need to take over and take it from your founding baby to now running this too as your organization." And I will tell you that I was excited yet very nervous. I had shaking hands. I didn't speak confidently. I was very keep cutting out with the language and words. And so and again, you can probably sense I'm a visual learner. So I'm constantly visualizing what that might look like. And not only getting the backing of my board members and from my family with that transition. And you know what? There's a saying that I have been saying the last several months, is that the world doesn't adapt to people with disabilities. People with disabilities have to adapt to the world. And it is so true, because no matter, and every community has this struggle. But for us, we have that added level of struggle of finding quality opportunities, whatever that might be and whatever we might seek. And so being CEO now has given me that level of boost of confidence to the point where I don't mind saying the darnest things and sometimes I'm vulgar in my language. And part of that is because I've done this work for 14 years. I'm now in a position where people are willing to invest in the organization, but reality is people are investing in me. And I'm reminding myself in 2 or 3 years when we hire our first or next doctor that will work closely with me is all of our partners that would rather work with me. And one of the things I'm going to have trouble with is how do I hand that off to somebody else and give them the skills and the leadership so that they can develop something like me. Not everybody's going to be entirely like me, but giving them the full skills and the tools to be successful so that my partners don't have to rely on me every day. They can rely on somebody else who can also do equal, if not better. I will tell you the life lesson, Kevin, and I know this is not a short answer for you, but the long answer is that, the short answer is that, you know, it takes time, patience, and determination. And sometimes it takes focus. In my shoes, I don't focus on one little thing. I focus on 40 different things. And there's a saying based on productivity levels. You focus your energy and time on each. Let's say you have 7 buckets, and each bucket has a purpose and goal in mind, end goal. And some might have a bunch of things on that bucket, and the others may not have as much. So the ones that have the most things on a bucket is where you need to divert your attention. Right now, I'm building over 100 buckets because I feel like we need to start the door with all of them. And it's like relationships, Tyler. As you build a relationship with somebody, you want to make sure you stay in touch. And I credit you, Tyler, for staying in touch and being informed and staying connected. And so the next goal is keep showing up, be present, and show out. So what I mean by that is show up, meaning be here today, be present, meaning engage in the conversation, and then lastly, show out. Share what you've learned and encourage others to follow that journey.
Amen, Dylan. Amen, man.
Yeah. Sometimes you'll step out, you'll say the bold thing or dance at a Mavs game that I know we'll talk about later, but just how that encourages others or inspires others. I've always finding that balance between confidence and arrogance is always something that I deal with internally because like where is that breaking point, and what I realize more is it's others' egos, including my own, that makes me uncomfortable of that judgment, or falling short of their expectations or just what they expect me to do within your title and your role, but making it your own, Dylan, it sounds like you're doing that every day. Ty, what do you got?
Man, Dylan, I had to ask you about these 100 buckets, man. So if these 100 buckets, if you conquer the 100 buckets, let me just phrase it this way. All 100 buckets have been conquered by Dylan Rafaty. All the goals have been set. Every bucket is filled up. What does the outcome of that look like and impact? What do those 100 buckets look like in completion?
Well, let me just give you some context of why I came up with that analogy. 12, 13, 14 years ago when I was about, this year I'm turning 35. I started my journey at 21 years old. And I will tell you that at that time I said I have a 50-year vision. And I'm telling you, 50-year vision at 21 years old is admirable, but people said I'm crazy. But when they say that I'm crazy, I tell them, I'll prove you wrong. Watch me. And so with that 50-year vision, I've done more in a decade than most people in my generation have ever done. And I say that confidently because when you have a clear vision of what you want to do and what you want to accomplish each decade, you have a driving force. You have that fire in you that you want to build something. So when I say I have 100 buckets, each bucket is for a different purpose. and it's basically specific purpose. So when I say in a post that I did regarding about the Mavs Disability Inclusion Night, I said I want to target all these other sports teams and figure out how to build that. So that's one bucket. So really targeting every sports team and how do we normalize disability inclusion within the sports realm. Another bucket might be simply just trying to reach specific communities where communities are already having trouble and lacking support. And, I don't know if you know this, Kevin, but in Texas, we have an affordable housing crisis here. Housing, let alone, I am lucky to be in a position where I have a home, but if I did it by myself entirely, it would be next to impossible. The market wasn't the way it was back then. So I'm looking at, okay, not just affordable housing, how do we make housing accessible to people, a variety of backgrounds, not just disabilities? How about to young individuals, single individuals? What does that look like? How do we broaden that? So I'm always dividing these buckets, but each bucket has to and relies on relationships, Tyler. It's all about the relationship. Without the relationship, you're not going to go anywhere. And frankly, you may get somewhere, but you're going to rely and lean on someone or some organization or some community to get you there. And so I will tell you, if I had all these buckets filled, I am one step closer to what my personal vision in life for the entire community is, that we increase the quality of life so that everyone, including people with disabilities, have a barrier-free, accessible, and inclusive life, so that they have access to a number of opportunities and the ability to access to social services, among other things. And that's such a big goal because, again, when I said earlier, the world doesn't adapt to us. We have to adapt to them. My goal is, how do we flip the switch and say, how can the world adapt to us so that everyone has the equal amount of opportunities, whether they earned it or not? The idea is it's there, it's available, rather than why do we have to go through 70 different doors and 2 different large mountains to ocean or rivers to get there? Why does it have to be this way? And so my goal is toward that vision. However, it's getting there better than what it was 10 years ago, but it is what I hope and envision. It may not happen when I retire or I leave Earth. The idea is that I'm taking it one step closer to a barrier-free life for everybody.
And that you are, man. I see you everywhere, man. And I think it's important to be everywhere all the time like you're doing, Dylan. And hats off to you, man. You make me feel more normal when I'm out there 9 days a week, traveling from Argyle to Dallas, who knows how many times a day. And you kind of feel like you're one of the only ones grinding. But then you see a Dylan Rafaty on the scene. And you make me, you pump me up, man. And I would love for these 100 buckets, or how many ever buckets, that you fill up. I'm excited to see where you get, man. And I guess
what Tyler, I would just say this, showing up is one thing. I have some advisors who tell me, Dylan, maybe you need to scale back some of those showing up. I said no, because reality is being present gives you that motivation. So Tyler, no matter how much time you put into the community, whether or not you might see an impact or an ROI or the end goal in mind, keep showing up, because before you know it, a connection or two might come through or pull through, and you might get a surprised email like I did last Friday. I contacted somebody about 2 years ago, and then 2 years later, they're finally ready to want to engage and work with me, because at that time when they reached out, it just didn't make sense. And so reality is, keep pushing forward, because and just being there, being present, takes you, it moves mountains a lot of ways.
Yeah, man. And what I've been doing lately, like before I enter the building, wherever I am, my mindset's more like, whose day can I make right now? rather than just thinking about me. And I go in there and try to light some fireworks under someone in there, and it usually works. And all of a sudden, I meet people like you and Nick Mariano, etc. And now I have like a tribe down here of people doing really, really cool things, man. I think Nick gave away like the Guinness Book of World Records of sandwiches a while back. Did you see that, Dylan?
Yes, I did. I saw that. And in fact, Nick is a rock star in himself, and I'm glad you got to connect with Nick. He's great.
Absolutely, man. Well, Kevin, what you got?
I'm thinking a lot. I'm feeling serious FOMO not being down in Texas and up here freezing my ass off in the snow. But no, I think I'm just chiming into a lot of Dylan what you said. I think coming from somebody of action, I started to realize more and more, the more that I did, I thought that I was actually more in control of what I actually was and what I could change and what I couldn't, and the more I started to back up, really see it for what it was, I thought the longest time that my own strength, right, and my own action was what was leading to results. But I think over time I've learned that that's not the case. You can have this drive, you can have this determination, but to your point, without the connections, without the relationships, without some of these other things that don't always show up on a balance sheet or always show up on a deal that make the difference of it going successfally or going in a different direction, and then having the opportunity to obviously learn through failure. But one of the things I want to go back to is, because it sounds like you left on your own accord, right? Making that determination that you wanted to follow your purpose and your passion. And I go back to a lot of male responsibilities that you kind of touched on, right? The having the pressure of having a home or needing to provide. And so many men that I've come across over my journey refuse to take that leap. Right, that leap of faith, or because why leave a good thing, right? And I think that we get so blinded by needing to be safe, right, and safety at all costs, and a lot of that comes at the cost of our own mental health, right, and what we're willing to deal with or put up with. But you brought up male responsibility, and I think it's something that really needs to be talked about more and more. But how did you get yourself comfortable? How did you talk yourself up by stepping fully into the unknown and really chasing that purpose or your calling? How did you get yourself comfortable with that?
Well, one, you got to have confidence. And without that confidence, it can be difficult. It can be hard. Another thing is you got to have the backing and the support. I started at a young age. I will tell you, when I first started, I probably had like a handful in my own hand of people that I could go right to and help guide me. And then now I have I would say, excuse my language, big ass bucket of people that I can go to and so forth. Again, I said that earlier, but that I have vulgar language tendencies. But I will tell you this is, to get to that point, it's people are willing to invest in people. If you have the fire, the determination, the goals, the aspirations, someone who's constantly wanting to learn and admit to mistakes and how do you turn those mistakes into opportunities and all of those things. This is the precious thing about life is ability to adapt and grow and adjust to change and so forth and so forward. Each moment, each experience, no matter a minute, a second, or an hour, or whatever, a day goes by, you are learning something along the way. And so taking those experiences and turning it into a positive is what people look for. One of the things that I've learned early on is how do we embrace and understand generational differences. My dad and I are Virgos. We think we know it all in a lot of cases. And sometimes we think we're actually 100% right. But he comes from a different generation than I did. And so one of the things that we have to do is how do we support one another knowing those generational differences. Same thing in the workplace environment. A lot of millennials are like, well, how do we know these other people that are younger than us? They're not going to want to work. Well, that's not true. They do want to work. It needs to be purposeful. It needs to be that they're protecting themselves, because in the baby boomer generation, not saying my dad's a baby boomer, but I'm just saying in the baby boomer generation, as we put the work and happen. But that time is so much different than what it is today. And the people today are focused on environments and cultures that embrace the actual working man. And what does that working man look like? And are we going to get the adequate support that we need so we can stay and live in longer a life and more prosperous life? So reality is, Kevin, I think it comes down to really having the adequate support system and seeing life for what it is and finding your piece of the puzzle to solve that puzzle. And I found a piece, and that piece was, how could I help my peers? This was not about me. It was, how do I help my peers to be successful? And why are we constantly hitting a brick wall and not solving anything? And so that's when I said I took the matters in my own hands. I was not going to guarantee anything other than bring people together so that we can smash through that brick wall and do it better. And so we've made progress. But one of my biggest aspirations now is that I'm now able to bring people from all walks of life, with and without disabilities, to come together, have the conversation. And instead of me doing the work, I'm actually delegating those opportunities so that others can take a more active and leadership role in that work. And so I have a good way of bringing people together. And that's why, and it's so positive, even though we can highlight the struggles, we do it in a positive way. And by doing that, more and more people, no matter what generation you're a part of, you are welcome to be a part of that equation. And that more and more people are receptive to want to be a part of that.
And I loved how you said it's almost unlearning or relearning that blueprint that has been passed down generation to generation, but having a willingness and openness to have the conversation and that discussion, and that's what I think is sometimes we're so closed off. We got to prove ourselves, or I'm stubborn myself, but sometimes I felt like I got to prove my point, right, or my value, or my side of the story, instead of really listening actively to what the other person is saying and trying to share themselves. So that's awesome. Thanks, Dylan.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Dylan, for our listeners, man, can you give them a little bit about your background and kind of how you got into this, man? I think we just jumped right in talking about dunking and hitting home runs. Can you just kind of give us a little background on the disability side of this place and kind of your experience?
Well, I've learned to perfect that short minute, so bear with me. It's going to be a lot. And so, well, first and foremost, I've always start with to people that I am deaf and hard of hearing. I have spinal back and neck fusions, and I have some level of learning disabilities. I'm proud to share that. I'm confident more than ever to share that. Whereas if you told me 12 years ago, I did not. But it took a lot of time and knowledge and experiences to build that self-confidence. Second is I'm a graduate of special education in a top school district in Texas called at Plano ISD. Since graduating, I knew I had to start over, went to community college. It took 6 years to graduate from that because 2.5 years I had to do developmental credit courses, meaning starting over, without having any kind of credit courses. Around that time, I had some mental health problems, and I had to figure out my way. So I started saw a film called Holland Opus, which was talking about his deaf son, and he was a musician instructor. So I said, my parents, told me, write a book of your own, create your own opus. And so I published a book based on my personal special education experiences, encouraging students with disabilities and their families to speak up about their education and how they can be proactive in their journey. Then I started Dylan Listed in 2012, where I was 21 at that, well, 22 at that time. And I started a business focused on employment and transition for youth with and adults with disabilities and our disabled veterans. And that propelled into uh, doing a number of things that can go on and on. I got into the advocacy realm, whereas later appointed by Governor Greg Abbott, Texas, and served for 8 years, 4 of those years as vice chair. And it developed a lot of great relationships with different state agencies, federal agencies, as well as right now having direct advisors to a number of state senators, representatives, as well as congressional and U.S. senators. So having such deep ties, and then got into serving on 20-something boards at nonprofits at any given moment, and got into what do you call it? Ran for office, being the first person with disabilities as a special education graduate to run for the school board for the state of Texas. So being that first person, that later I've also mentored 20 plus individuals with disabilities on both sides of the aisle as they ran for office. Now, I didn't talk about my academic journey. So I graduated in 2016 with an associate's. In 2017, I went through my bachelor's of IO psychology, so studying workplace and human behaviors in organizational settings. Graduated there from 2019. Got my master's in dispute resolution and conflict management at SMU during the pandemic. So it was 2020 all the way to 2022. And now 2023 to present, I am now getting my doctorate of organizational change and leadership in at the University of Southern California. So it is a virtual program, but I will tell you that, and this might be a great topic to you both, knowing that it's sports related. My dissertation topic will be about how sports organizations fail to make effective business cases to address accessibility. And it's not from an athlete or a consumer front, it's more so from a business operations front. And I can tell you right off the bat, I'm getting a lot of feedback from a lot of people saying this is going to be great research. So I'm already writing on that. And being a founder and CEO now with the North Texas Disability Chamber, there are 6 disability chambers in the United States. 4 of them are in Texas, and we're the only ones in the country that does community education. So that is a short, abbreviated version. I can go on and on about all the different things. It could be several episodes, so sorry about that. But I think reality is this journey opened one door after another, and that door opened because I ended up doing it myself. Why? Because unfortunately, I don't have opportunities given to me. I have a great, strong academic background, but I don't have a strong career background. And part of that is because no door opened. So what do? I did it myself. I built it my own. And so I think more and more people appreciate that. And I think we're going in the pathway nowadays. People are rather build their own thing and build a culture that works for them rather than what society sees of what opportunities and structures are built. I will tell you, Tyler, since the pandemic, more and more people are more after flexible opportunities rather than fixed opportunities. And what I mean by that is they want a work environment where they have the flexibility, they're given the trust and the respect to be able to fulfill the needs and the goals and the requirements of their duties, but at the same time doing it so flexible-wise, meaning giving them an environment where they can thrive and be innovative and think creative.
I could not agree more, Dylan. I actually got a journal the other day. I told Kevin about my journal, and I started writing in there exactly what you're talking about, man. It's really not the why for me. It's the freedom for me. You know, like you were saying, the flexibility and stuff just with my family and not having someone on your back all the time and being able to just, you know, as the kids say, just let me cook, man. Let me cook, right?
Yeah.
But dude, and to me, man, when I hear you talk, dude, I think like disabled learning my ass, right? Like from whatever you just went through, I think that really would pump some kids up out there if they have a learning disability. Hearing your story, I'm sure you're helping out a lot of kids. I wanted to ask you, out of all these freaking badasses you've met, what top 3 would you take me and Kevin out to Hutchins Barbecue when he comes down? Like, it sounds like you have met just about everyone in the DFW, man. Who's your top 3 people you met?
Oh, well, you interviewed one of them, and he's one of my dear friends, Brian Cuban. And so he's wonderful. And he and I had I don't know if you know this story. So when I published my book, I gave him my book. And then a year later, he published his first book. And so I don't know if he got that. I never asked him, but I'm curious if he ever got the inspiration that I published a book and said, you know what, maybe I should publish a book. I don't know. I'm not going to take any credit for that until I get verification. The second thing is from him, Brian, we did a speaking engagement together, and it was our first time doing an actual talk where we were together in that moment. And ever since then, we communicate. And from time to time, I have this natural tendency to reach out on occasion, just check in and see how he's doing, and so forth. And that's, to me, that's relationship 101. Second person I would recommend is Sent Marshall, former CEO of the Dallas Mavericks. She retired as of December 31st. She's my biggest donor and biggest mentor in everything I've done. And she's the reason why we have such a great, strong relationship with the Dallas Mavericks and in sports in general. She is fun. She's a go-getter. She has a lot of insight. And then the other third person in DFW is also my mentor, is Dr. Cheryl Action Jackson. She is the founder of Mini Scoop Pantry. She is known globally to feed hunger. Especially, I think she served over, I don't know, 4 or 5 million meals here locally in North Texas and above. But she is a trailblazer in her own right. She has her own talk show on a television network and so forth. And she's has relationships with top executives around the world. She's LA, Hollywood, you name it. She's all, and I have aspirations to go that route with her. And Sent, I'm nowhere near as Brian Sent and Dr. Cheryl Action Jackson, but those are the kind of aspirations that I hope to eventually have, and not having to worry day to day what I need to accomplish. But those are the kind of people, having a sit down conversation with them would be a lot of fun. There will be dancing involved, and there will be, we would be the loudest table in the room, and people keep looking at us like, why are they so loud? Why are they laughing? Why are they dancing? It's weird. And reality is, I don't mind being weird. I don't mind being the loud, obnoxious person in the room, because at the end of the day, people will eventually want to be like us and have that confidence, and that door is always open to them.
Yeah. I'm learning more and more of that definition of weird. It's you follow again that blueprint that neither of us really had any say with, but you start to learn that it's out of a lot of other spheres. One of the things, Dylan, obviously you have an incredible story. I think when you say the rest of society doesn't evolve and doesn't adapt to you, you have to adapt with it. I think speaks to some of the challenges that you've had to overcome, these obstacles that other people just may not understand because they haven't had the same outcome or obstacles that they've had to face. But how do you cut yourself from becoming a prisoner to that story, right? Because if you actually bought into what everybody told you and what you were going to be capable of, that's something that you fought, right? And you beat back, and you keep calling it being present and confidence, right? But if somebody was listening to this show right now, they would say, well, I want confidence, but I don't know how to get that. and I'm reading into what everybody's telling me that I'm capable of or what I'm able to do. And that's all I can see for myself. But as you mentioned at 21, you created a 50-year plan for your life, and some people are just trying to get through today. So how did you not become a prisoner to your story, and how do you continue to get out of bed and try to do it better today than you did yesterday?
You got to have the fire. If you don't have the fire, you're going to wait day by day just figuring out how to have that fire. I will tell you the advantages of having a disability is you're seeing things that most people don't often see. And because having a disability allows you to see a different perspective, a different angle based on your disability. One of the things that I will tell you is I when I was looking for opportunities and so forth, I was hard on myself, and people could see it, they could understand it. But at the same token, I had people who put me in this cubicle that, hey, you know what? Start here and then build from there. I'm like, F no. Why start? I know where I am. Why do I have to be in this cubicle and then stay in this cubicle and may not get the result maybe 7 or 8 years later? No, I see a much bigger vision, and I rather align with people who see that vision and help me get there. And so one of the things I would tell people is surround your people who think, act differently than you. And when you surround yourself with that, then you'll get that fire. You'll start brewing, in beer. You brew the ingredients together. As you start tasting the flavors, you start realizing, oh, maybe I could do this and this and this. That's when you build the fire. It's kind of like a plant. Plant, you need the right soil, you need the right water, you need the right sun, you need all these different things. And guess what? They are not built the same. You have a different network, a different people. I always say is build your passion about and how you connect with people that are different from you. And when they're different from you, they give you different seeds and ideas. And that's where you can start looking at your own journey and feeding off what you hear from other people. And then you start realizing that's where your fire is. So, Kevin, to be honest with you, I can talk loud and passionately like ever before. But reality is I did not have that fire to begin with. I remember day to day. I still am today, day to day, because as a life as an entrepreneur and a single employee and whatever, and one of the things I had a relationship with Roger Healy. I don't know if you know, Tyler, who Roger Healy is, but he's a real estate guru here in Dallas-Fort Worth. And one of the things he told me, he said, do you have a relationship? I don't, because I'm constantly focused on the career. I want a relationship. I just don't have the time or the capacity to do so, to devote to it. Heck, I'm now finally devoting my time to get a furry companion, because one of the things that I want is a dog. And I've never had a dog, and I want a dog. And so now I have the fire to say, you know what, the wherewithal to get there. I found the right breeder in over. I want to get a golden doodle, just so you know. And so having that kind of passion, you gotta build it, and it takes time, it takes patience, it takes determination, and it takes focus. And so reality is start with who is your network. If you have the same people, you're not gonna get the kind of fire that you want. And so surrounding yourself with a network of people, and it's okay to ask for the people to see if they would be willing to be part of your circle to build that fire in you. And reality is, Tyler, one of the things that I started initially was I wanted to go to communities where I was not comfortable in. I've never had a relationship with. So tapping myself in, like getting your feet in the water and just testing the waters out, that's a great way to start that journey and building your circle. And here's the thing. You can still live day to day and so forth. But once you start having the fire, then things start opening up. You might have several light bulb moments and then go in that journey. And once you get to that journey, you're going to have mistakes. You're going to have bumpy roads. Because a life as an entrepreneur or a nonprofit leader or whatnot, you're going to have those cycles. It's not going to be it's actually not any different from what you're doing today, living day to day, because you're still going to have those things. What doesn't live day to day is your fire. Your fire changes each day, and each day, as you have a clear goal and a mindset of where you want to go, you'll have that fire, that drive, that determination, that focus, that passion. And I think the number one thing that people see in me is my passion. And Tyler, to Kevin, to your point, one of the things that I tell people all the time is, your passion helps push you forward, and that passion comes from within, not from others. You can read all the books in the world to tell you all the different aspirations. That doesn't start there. It starts within you, and and how you behave and how you put your attitude toward life or the actions you take that take you farther than what you're doing right now.
Yeah. I love how you said it, break human tendencies to surround yourself with people that see it the same way that you do. Otherwise, you're not getting the right nutrients, the right, like you said, soil to grow to other seeds, otherwise it's the same farm and you've been growing the same thing for 20 some odd years. And I love how you just go back to what you said, you have to ask, you don't get what you don't ask for. And I think my question for 2024, I'll never forget, because I was texting Tyler and I just, it was like halfway through the year, Ty, and I just said, I'm on this great journey to discover who I am, and I think at the end of 2024, what I have concluded is that I just am, I am, and it is. And those are some big things that make no sense to a question that everybody asks themselves, but I hear a lot of that in your voice, Dylan. I think you accepted who you were, you accepted the cards that you've been given. You accepted that you're going to be perfectly imperfect. And the more that you get to acceptance and self-love, I think that's where all these other pieces start falling in to the puzzle very quickly. So I appreciate today's conversation. I appreciate you kind of guiding us through your confidence. I don't know how anybody sits on 20 boards and still lives to tell the tale at the end of the year, but it's inspiring, and I always told Tyler that too. His demeanor, his purpose shines through with every word and every action that he takes. And that in and of itself inspires people to change themselves. So I have no doubt that you inspired Brian Cuban to write his first book, The Ambulance Chaser. I have no doubt, Dylan, because sometimes when you hear from somebody else that I think I could do that too, pulls you in different directions than you ever expected before. But I really enjoyed today's conversation, and thank you for all the awareness and passion and purpose that you bring to this planet.
Kevin, I just want to make one point, and Tyler, and this was coming back to me, is one of the things that I've noticed in pouring that passion to others and to you and as well, that will go away after a week. During that week, what are you doing to further that so you can still have that passion?
Mm-hmm.
I get calls from nonprofits all the time that this event still resonates. This gives me that focus, that drive, and I have a good way of motivating. But I tell people that motivation will slowly die away because you're so focused on the day-to-day task. What are you doing to continue that? So my ending question to you, Tyler, Kevin, and everybody watching this podcast is, what are you doing when you hear this from somebody like me or other people you look up to, what are you doing with that passion? Because in that 1 week, you can make all the difference in the world for yourself and those around you. And if you don't do anything in that 1 week, well, you don't have anyone to blame except for yourself. Mm-hmm. So start with that fire.
Yeah, I like that. Pay it forward passion. That's what I think we'll call today. Appreciate it, Dylan. Thanks so much.